You think this is gonna hold up in court? I'm suing you personally for harassment.
The lien is valid. The dock belongs to me now.
The first thing I saw at 6:12 a.m. was a shiny silver padlock hanging from my lake dock like it owned the place, and the second thing I felt was cold air cutting through my hoodie while my coffee turned sour in my mouth. The metal was fresh, still oily, and the chain was thick enough to stop a small car. My boat rocked gently in the water like it was teasing me. Across the street, the HOA security truck sat with its hazard lights blinking, orange flashes bouncing off the wet asphalt. The whole scene smelled like last night's rain and cheap gasoline. I stood there barefoot in damp grass, staring at a sign zip-tied to the post that said "Dock closed, violation." I didn't even know what I had violated yet. But I knew who did it. Karen from the board. The one with the perfect hair and the permanent smirk, like rules were a hobby and anger was her favorite sport. This whole mess started because my mailbox is basically a black hole. Flyers, coupons, fake charities, you name it. So when they claimed they gave me notice, it was buried under pizza menus. That's why the title of my week became HOA Padlocked My Lake Dock after 48 hours of notice in junk mail. Then I filed the lien, and yes, that's exactly what happened. I called the HOA office at 8:03 a.m. and got voicemail. I emailed at 8:05 a.m. and got an auto reply. I walked to Karen's house at 9 a.m. and she opened the door just wide enough to show me her smile. I said, "Hey, my dock is padlocked." "Why?" She said, "You were notified." 48 hours. I said, "I never saw anything." She shrugged and told me to submit an appeal form. Like my dock was a library book, I returned late. When I went to the next board meeting, neighbors stared at their shoes. One guy whispered, "Don't make her mad." They skipped my name on the agenda like I was invisible, then ended the meeting early. They didn't even pretend. I went home shaking, not from fear, but from that hot, dumb feeling where you want to scream and also cry. My dock wasn't just wood and nails. It was where I taught my nephew to fish. It was where my dad sat before he passed, quiet as the water, holding a cheap rod like it was gold. Karen turning it into a punishment was the line in the sand for me. I promised myself I would keep it clean and legal. No yelling in the street. No cutting locks in the dark. Proper channels only. That night, May 3, 2024, I sat at my kitchen table under a buzzing light and started building a case like I was studying for a test. I lined up photos, emails, and call logs in a binder. I took close-up shots of the padlock, the sign, the chain, even the zip ties. I saved every email, even the stupid auto-reply. I wrote down every time I called. My hands smelled like paper and coffee, and my stomach felt like a tight knot, but for the first time all day, I felt in control. The next morning, I drove to the county office while the sun was still low, and I asked for public records tied to our HOA and the lake access easement. The clerk slid a form to me like this was normal, because for her, it was. For me, it felt like opening a secret door. 3 days later, the file landed with 63 pages, and I read every single one. That's when I found it. The dock area wasn't HOA owned. It was part of a shared easement recorded when the neighborhood was built. The HOA could enforce basic rules, sure, but they couldn't block access or attach new penalties without a vote and recorded changes. Karen never had that. She just liked pretending she did. I made a simple labeled sheet and taped it to the inside of my binder cover, big letters like a kid's project. Timeline item 1 April 5 at 4:27 a.m. false trespass call. Timeline item 2 April 18 at 9 p.m. noise complaint while I was out of town. Timeline item 3 May 3 at 6:12 a.m. dock padlocked with junk mail notice. It wasn't just petty. It was a pattern. Here's the part Karen didn't expect. I wasn't trying to win a shouting match. I was building a record. I sent the HOA a certified letter with the easement pages attached and gave them 72 hours to remove the lock. I also requested, in writing, the vote record for any policy that allowed padlocking. Spoiler, there wasn't one. While I waited, I did one more thing that felt boring but deadly. I filed a complaint with the county code office about unlawful obstruction of an easement, and I attached photos and the public records pages. Then I called a lawyer for a quick consult and asked one question: what happens if they keep blocking access? He said, you can place a lien for damages if you follow the rules and you can prove costs. So I did exactly that. When the HOA ignored my letter and Karen emailed back one line, notice was provided, I paid a locksmith $350 to remove the lock in broad daylight, with the sheriff's non-emergency line notified ahead of time. 2 neighbors stood on their porches filming like it was a nature documentary. The locksmith clipped the chain at 2:17 p.m., the padlock hit the wood with a loud clank, and Karen's face appeared at the end of the street like she smelled smoke. She marched up like she was about to give me detention, and she hissed, "That's HOA property." I said, "It's an easement. Public record. 63 pages worth of proof." Her eyes flicked to the binder like it was a weapon. She tried to call the police right there, loud enough for everyone to hear, saying I was trespassing and vandalizing HOA equipment. 10 minutes later, a deputy rolled up, calm as Sunday, and I handed him the binder and my timeline page. He looked at Karen and said, "Ma'am, this is a civil matter, and if you keep making false reports, that can become a criminal matter. Patterns of false reports can be prosecuted." Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish. The deputy asked her for the vote record. She had none. He asked her who authorized the lock. She pointed at herself like that was an answer. The best part was the neighbors. One lady laughed so hard she snorted. Someone behind me said, "Karen just got fact-checked." Another guy muttered, "Finally." Later that day, a clip of Karen arguing with a deputy hit our neighborhood group chat, and the comments were brutal in the funniest way. People kept replaying the part where she said, "I am the board," and the deputy just blinked. By the following week, the county inspector sent a formal notice to the HOA for obstructing the easement, and suddenly the board wanted to talk. The same people who skipped my name on the agenda were now emailing me at 7 a.m. like we were best friends. They offered to reimburse the locksmith. I said, "Great, because I already filed the paperwork for a lien for documented costs and interference, and I was not pulling it unless payment cleared." 2 days later, I received a check for $600 covering the locksmith and my filing fees, and I released the lien the same afternoon. Karen tried to act like it was a miscommunication, but the board didn't back her up anymore. At the next meeting, they voted to remove her from the compliance committee, and the room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioner rattle. Afterward, one neighbor came up to me and said, "Thank you. We've all been scared." I took my nephew fishing that weekend, and when he stepped onto the dock, he looked at me and said, "It feels bigger now." I didn't tell him it was because fear had shrunk it before. I just smiled and handed him the bait, and the lake looked peaceful again, like it was mine to share, not theirs to control. Please follow for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think she got what she deserves? Comment below.